Ask me anything about politics. My name is Jarrett, and I'm here to answer all of your questions about politics, regardless of how simple or complicated they might be. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So, this is the show where you can ask all your questions about politics, and no one's going to judge you or make fun of you or roast you. This is not a show for debating or roasting or harassing or bullying or arguing. I know that's a very popular show that exists all over the internet where Democrats and Republicans just scream at each other. That is not this show. This is just engaging in good faith on the substance of the issues so that we can all have a shared reality once again, so that we can all at least agree on what's going on, even if we don't agree on what we should be doing about it. Everybody's welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. This is not, I'm not going to yell at you for having different political opinions than me, so long as you are here in good faith. So post your questions in the chat, and we will get to answering them. Mallow Pig says outskirts. Did I say the wrong word, Mallow Pig, or are you saying that that's where you are? All right. Excellent first questions, everybody. Welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. I'm here to answer your questions about politics, be they simple or complicated. There's no such thing as a dumb question. Good to see you again, Willie. Thank you for being here. And yeah, you don't have to worry about getting roasted or trolled for your question. There's a lot of misinformation and propaganda out there. So this is the show where you can ask all your questions and we can have a better idea of what's going on, and we can shoot down anything that hasn't been confirmed. And RN says thoughts on the UK and USA's relationship. Um, I think that a lot of the things that plague American politics are similar to the things that plague UK politics. Like, we never give Democrats a break in America, and it seems like the UK never gives Labour a break. Um, Generally speaking, I think that the UK needs to stand up on its own 2 feet. If America starts a stupid fucking war in Iran, I think the UK is better served not assisting with it. But there's just little bits there. Willie says, did you ever talk to that Marxist person on Discord? No, I did not. Awfully sus, don't you think? Fent Abuser says, are you far right? No, I am not. I am a progressive Democrat. Stephen Peterson AL says, why did I hear Australia is joining the fight against Iran? Is that true? I have no idea what other countries' obligations or commitments have been to America so far in Iran. I would just say that if any of those world leaders are here, I would encourage you to not. Fent Abuser says, what did you think of George Bush Jr.? Do you mean W? W was a really, really, really bad president. He was not intellectually prepared for the role. He allowed Dick Cheney to kind of dog walk him all over the place. A lot of people died because of his incompetence and general ambivalence to actually doing the job that he was hired to do. But he's better than what we got now. Musking Willie, thank you so much for helping me reach my first gift goal of the day. Low Dairy says Iran. It's not Venezuela for sure. Yeah, that's definitely accurate. Those are two different countries and situations. Stephen Peterson says, would you consider JFK one of the best presidents? I know a lot of people think highly of him. As far everything I know about JFK makes it seem like he was an okay president. I definitely don't know so much about it that I can either add to or correct that narrative. Truth Teller, what's going on? Good to see you again. Willie says, why do people say Dick Cheney was the most powerful VP? There is substantive reporting that Dick Cheney made an agreement with George W. Bush before he agreed to be his vice president that he was basically going to be doing the job of president. The same relationship that Stephen Miller has with Donald Trump right now is the relationship that Dick Cheney had with George W. Bush. Low Dairy says, how much we spent on the war so far? I believe estimates are saying it's between $1 and $2 billion a day. So just think about how much that could help you and your family out, instead of just being used to murder a bunch of schoolgirls in Iran. Edgar Saldivar says, hello, I want to follow you, but I would like to hear your opinions on bologna sandwiches first. I'm against them. Shork says, can you explain how the SAVE Act hurts Democrats more? Absolutely. So The Republican Party has this philosophy of so long as it's a net negative for Democrats, we don't care. So if they shut down a hospital that a lot of Republicans go to, that's fine with them so long as more Democrats go as well. The SAVE Act is exactly the same principle, where it will disenfranchise women who are trying to vote, but because women vote for Democrats more than they vote for Republicans, Republicans are fine with that happening because that means fewer Democratic votes. It's going to hurt poor people from being able to vote as well. It's going to be hurting people in Democratic areas from being able to vote, especially if you live in a state that has Republican control where they can shut down roads or polling stations or DMVs, shit like that. But yeah, and that's going to keep a lot of Republicans from voting, but it'll keep more Democrats from voting. Ergo, that's the reason why they want to have it. All right. Philly Goat Brady says, of course, a Democrat would say that. I mean, the things I'm saying are accurate, Philly, but if you have any specific issues that you would like to discuss in depth, just let me know. Put it in the chat. The one thing I won't truck for, Philly, is just you making these sort of like blanket claims that I am biased or wrong without providing any kind of substantive rejoinder. Stormrider says, can you explain the influence of Russia and Ukraine in this war? Sure. I mean, it's a little bit complicated. The Russian government is providing Iran intelligence against Americans. Ukraine has developed really cool anti-drone technology that we now need from them. And additionally, because the war is fucking up oil prices, the Trump administration has removed sanctions against Russia selling their oil so that hopefully American gas costs go down. But of course, that is going to strengthen Russia's position in the war. It's going to give them more leverage to provide more intel to Iran. Yeah, it's just like one of the biggest cell phones in foreign policy history. Gambit says Trump. That's an example of the kind of comment that gets you blocked. It's not that I disagree with you. It is because you didn't ask a question. What's up, Lauren? Great to see you again. KG says, why did Trump start a war? It's a good question, KG. I think we can be safe to say that it is none of the reasons that Trump has said that he has started the war, because they have been contradictory and wildly disproved. There's a bunch of different theories as to why the war was actually started. I think the explanation that makes the most sense to me is just that Netanyahu and Lindsey Graham really wanted this war, and they devoted a lot of time and energy to tricking Trump into doing it. Okay, Loud Derek says, any plan for healthcare since you're spending that much money on war? Not under Republican administrations. If you want healthcare to be cheaper, or even if you want universal healthcare, you got to vote for Democrats. Dave E says, so no, I had no proof of citizenship to ID. Come all immigrants vote here. Your spelling is really terrible, Dave, which makes it feel like you're not even a real person. Jay Slot says, Biden and Obama and Kamala would have done the same thing. That is wildly inaccurate, Jay Slots. Ask a question or I'm going to boot you. Clean Fresh Edit says, do you think Epstein was a PDF file and was trafficking women to the elite for blackmail? I think that's largely true. Clean Fresh Edits. And I think that we have a ton of evidence supporting that claim. Brandino says, I got a very serious political question. Okay, ask it. Dave E says, so no, I no proof of citizen to vote. All right, yeah, so you're just repeating the same extremely poorly spelled comments. Scott Clower says, Lindsey needs to start worrying about South Carolina. I completely agree with that. Fletch Lives Again says, they're always 2 weeks away from making a nuke. How about that? Brandino says, do you like bologna? No, I do not. Jay says, do you think Nepal will get involved? That's a really good question, Jay, and I honestly don't have any idea. My gut's telling me no, but I could be wrong about that. I make no claims to be an expert on that very specifically. Willie says, do you think Epstein was a Mossad agent? I think it is way more likely that Epstein was working for himself and just worked with a lot of intelligence agencies because he had a lot of valuable blackmailing material on very powerful people that all of the different intelligence agencies wanted to get a hold of. D. Scott Muzzking, Kim Buckman, and Low Dairy, thank you so much for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. John Abbott, great to see you again, says, anyone claiming Biden and Obama would have done the same thing needs to explain why they didn't do the same thing when they had their collective 12 years opportunity to do so. That is an excellent point. John Abbott. Let's see here. Scott Clower says Maxwell's dad definitely was. I mean, he definitely had some connections, but I don't know if that's been proven definitively. Some dude says, what do you think about Trump's energy secretary deleted tweet? You'll have to be more specific, some dude. What tweet are you referring to? Jake White says, did the U.S. government help kill JFK? I have no idea. Probably not. Chance says, is the elementary school bombing just a terrible reality of war or something more? It's not a reality of war. It's a war crime. It is a massive fuck up by American military. The fact that Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump are not owning up to that and doing everything they can to make amends suggests that they don't give a shit when they accidentally kill over 100 schoolgirls. Yeah, that is not something that just kind of happens. Like, there are rules for engagement that Pete Hegseth has gone on the record to say that he doesn't really give a shit and that he's instructing his military to ignore. Yeah, man, it's just like, it's so fucking horrific and stupid and terrible. Stank says, do you think Trump is going to attack Cuba next? That would be my guess. Some dude says, Trump energy secretary deleted a tweet about Navy escorts of oil tankers, question mark. Yeah, there's a weird messaging battle happening within the Trump administration on putting out lies to help the market. And then, you know, one of those lies is that we are going to be protecting all of the commercial vehicles that are going through the Strait of Hormuz, which is, I believe, a lie, but potentially he wanted that information out there to try to juice the market a little bit. I got no idea. Chili Willie, happy Wednesday to you. Kyra Woolstrom says, will he start a draft? I think it's unlikely, but not impossible. I think it's instructive that they keep on soft floating the idea of a draft to sort of like ease Americans into it. Skip this says, I requested up, but I'll write it here. Excellent. That's how it works. Joe Cologne says, do you think China is more emboldened to attack Taiwan if they know that the U.S. can't even handle Iran? Yes, 100%, Joe Cologne. There is one clear winner in the Trump administration, and that is China. Like, he is basically, you know, people say that whether or not Trump's a Russian agent is immaterial because he's acting like one. It is clear that Trump is additionally acting as though he is doing everything that he can to help support China taking over the globe. Okay, let's see here. Skip this says, what's the best way to defeat white supremacy without resorting to violence and giving in? The best way to defeat white supremacy is, I don't know if there's one specific answer to that, Skip this, but here's the thing. The reason why people become white supremacists is out of desperation. It is white people who are stuck and depressed, and they find that the only answer that makes sense to them is that brown people are getting the things that they deserve, and they are getting it because of things like affirmative action and DEI. The people that are reaching out to potential white supremacists to sort of like radicalize them and bring them in are insidious, and they are unwavering in their goals. They do not shame people for the places that they are. They tell them, you are right to be upset about this. This is not your fault. It is the fault of brown people. I think that we need to be part of that coalition as well. We need to be reaching out to those people, making sure that people aren't becoming so desperate that they look for these easy solutions. And I think that we need to sort of like make sure that they also know that this is not their fault, and that there is a group of people that is doing this to them, and that it is the billionaire class and the Republican Party. This is about reaching out to people. It's about communicating to people, and it is about bringing people out of the darkness and out of hate and into a place where we all work together to, you know, have a better fucking country and better fucking lives for our children. Chili Willie D. Scott Muzz King Mia, thank you so much for helping me reach my third gift goal today. That means that it's finger hearts o'clock. And to whoever asked that question about the how we stop white supremacy, I hope that I was able to give you some good information. And if there's more that you want me to say about that, let me know. Okay, EZXTK says, what's your opinion on the Hormuz Strait that got closed by Iran? This is one of the most easily predicted consequences of starting a war with Iran. Like, previous administrations have not done this because they did not have a contingency plan for how costs would skyrocket because trade would be closed through the Strait of Hormuz. I think it is indicative. It It is clear that the Trump administration is fucking winging this because they just kind of like let that happen. This like bad thing that we knew was going to happen if we started a war with Iran. It happened. They have no plans for dealing with it except for lying. Yeah, man. It's just so fucking stupid, guys. Muzz King, Joe Padilla, Kim Buckman, and Low Dairy. Thank you so much. I'm reaching my first Finger Hearts goal of the day. Sophia says, love my radical left streams. That's what I'm here for. Sophia, welcome to the party, pal. Right. Okay, MJ says, how do we make the Democratic see that the SAVE Act is about American people vote only? That's not what it is, MJ. And you are either lying or you have been lied to about what the SAVE Act is and what it is for. It is a voter suppression bill. It is intended to make voting harder for American citizens that sometimes vote for Democrats. That is the long and short of it, MJ. If you would like me to go into more detail, let me know. But I will not accept blanket statements like, no, it's not from you, because that is not an argument. That is just a denial, and it is awfully sus. You know, there's a ton of information out there about this, and I'm happy to show you where you are being inaccurate. BW says, should we continue to fund the Ukraine war? Yes, 100%. S says, why leftists hate billionaires? Billionaires are responsible for many of the problems that we are all suffering under, whether you are poor, working class, middle class, whatever. The billionaires are fucking with you, and your life would be infinitely better and easier if we did not allow people to hoard resources the way that the billionaire class has, and particularly the way that they have been able to use those resources to purchase politicians and get their money, going forward. Kim Buckman, Chili Willie Muzz King, thank you so much for helping me reach my second Finger Heart goal of the day. I had a thought recently, because somebody asked about the billionaire class. Like, it's not just about the exploitation of workers and what they do with their money. It's the fact that having that much money is dangerous. Like, there's a reason we don't let people have nuclear bombs, because it's dangerous. And I believe that we should have the same argument for not letting people have $1 billion, because it is dangerous when you give people that much money. MJ Creation says, yeah, all the Congress people, the billionaires, they're fucking with us, stealing our money. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that, MJ, but it should be clear that taxing people is not stealing our money. What Trump is doing is stealing your money. Some dude says, who do you think is the worst actor in the Trump administration? Probably Stephen Miller. Me who, great to see you again. Flick Chick says, let us like you. You hold reason. I need to follow you. I don't know what that is. MJ says, what's the difference between Trump and Congress then? Sure. So taxes passed by Congress are then used to pay for things that supposedly are for everybody. Trump, by contrast, is just taking money out of your pocket and putting it into his. By suing the Justice Department and then deciding on the settlement because he's in charge of the Justice Department, he is stealing money from you. By pardoning white-collar criminals, he is stealing money from you, etc. Thank you, Mihu. Low Dairy says, AIPAC controls both parties when it comes to foreign affairs. How do we change that? So first of all, it's important to realize that that is not 100% accurate. There are more Democrats voting against AIPAC policies than there have ever been before. So if you don't like AIPAC having control of your politicians, then you should vote for Democrats more. That's number one. Number two is the reason why politicians are allowing themselves to get pushed around by AIPAC is because they're very powerful. The road is littered with the bodies of Democratic politicians who tried to stand up to AIPAC and then lost their primary elections or their general elections. So if you want politicians who don't take AIPAC money or who are not swayed by AIPAC, then vote for politicians who stand up to AIPAC and recognize when you are being tricked into not voting for a Democrat because AIPAC doesn't like them. MJ says, a lot more fair that the things you purchase you get taxed on instead of taxing people directly pay you. MJ, I gotta be honest, you are sus as hell. Your syntax is terrible. All the things that you're saying are deeply biased. If you do not ask a question going forward, then you will get booted. But I am not going to engage in a debate with somebody who I do not even believe is a real person. MJ says, yep, I'm just a dumb white woman hillbilly from, and then no then no place. So clearly this Russian bot is still accidentally hit enter before they were able to find a place in America that they were from. And MJ, remember, you're in question jail. If the next thing you say is not a question, you're out of here. FL Chick says, yikes, you seemed real, but are just reading and dismissing. Thanks for that. Fast talk isn't always fun. I am not doing that, FL Chick. So you can stay or you can leave. It's up to you. Joy Rosapina says, the prices become too high. Will they go against the Trump administration? There are people who claim that they have left the Trump train because of things that Trump has done during this administration. And we need to be cautiously optimistic about that, because sometimes people just go back home to to the Republican Party, even though Trump has done a bunch of things that they hate. So it's definitely worth pursuing. We should definitely pull on that thread, but let us not just sit on our laurels and hope that that delivers us the kind of electoral victories that we need to make this country better. Chili Willie, Muzz King, and Kim Buckman, thank you so much for helping me reach my third Finger Hearts goal today. And now it is time for High Bears. And you know what happens if we hit all the High Bear goals is that you guys get the Karasnemic manifesto from season 1 of Andor. Low Dairy says, do you think MAGA gonna vote for Trump after all his lies? Some may leave, some may stay. We just have to be vigilant, FL Chick says, yes, you are. I'd like to watch, but you're angry. I'm trying to see why. I think it is weird that you calling me angry when I am like the chillest human being on the fucking planet, and you are catching me on a particularly chill day. So yeah, you're sus as hell. FL Chick, ask a question or I'm gonna boot you. Frito says, is this Iran war, an American war, or an Israel war? It's kind of both. BitNevo says, we have maybe about a week before the closure of Hormuz causes a global recession. Where's Congress? Excellent question, BitNevo. And if you have a problem with it, I would start calling your Republicans, because they're the ones that are fucking in charge of this whole fucking mess. S says, why do leftists and liberals call everybody with different opinions a bot or not a real person? So I don't do that, but the fact of the matter is that a lot of the internet is not real people and are bots. And so it is not just people that have different opinion of me that I believe are bots or not real persons, but you can kind of tell based on the fact that people aren't asking questions in good faith and their syntax is terrible and they're not acknowledging the things that you say. They're just kind of doing blanket rejections, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I reject the premise of your question. If you put me in front of a real person, I will not accuse them of being a bot or fake. But if you put me on the internet, which is swimming in fake people and bots, then I have to be vigilant against finding the bad faith actors. Gorilla Rem says, I know it sounds bad, but I think we're going to need re-education by the time this is all over. I mean, we just need to call it education, Gorilla. We need more education. Chili Willy 2 says, Section 2, paragraph 4, if we win the midterms. I don't have that one memorized. If you would like, just go ahead and throw that in the chat. Forerunner says, I'm a bot. Donald J. Trump is awesome. No lies detected, except for the second half of your sentence. FL Chick says, LOL, woman questioning you, then angrily wanted to block me. I'm really AF. I'm engaged. Nice. Congratulations. You are out of here because you are also a liar. Joy Rosapina says, do you think they will win the primaries by cheating? How can we stop them? What can we do? Excellent question, Joy. So they are going to try. Trump and the Republicans are going to try to steal the election, cheat for the election, suppress the vote to win the election. And there are things that we can do to try to stop it. And all of that happens now. We need to be on the phone with our local representatives and asking them if they have a contingency plan for all the various ways that the Trump administration could try to fuck with the vote. Like, how are we backing up our voting machines in case the FBI tries to seize them? Are we, putting police officers by certain polling locations that we think ICE might go to try and intimidate people? Are we, protecting our voter rolls so that the Republican Party cannot target people that consistently vote for Democrats? All of that stuff is work that we can do right now. Additionally, you can try to make the election too big to rig. So just the work of getting people out there to vote, just the work of convincing people to vote for Democrats over Republicans, that is helping. That is helping to protect the midterm elections against Republican thievery and chicanery. Oh, All right, John Abbott says, all of the talk about we have to stop the war so they'll reopen the Strait of Hormuz seems to ignore the fact that Iran has agency and doesn't have a lot of reason to reopen it, even if we stop attacking them. Yeah, the Trump administration is being really psychotic in thinking that they get to decide when this war is over, because we could stop bombing them and Iran could just be beginning the war, TikTok motherfucker says, I just heard Israel attacked Lebanon. Have they been in a war with each other already, or is this new? I'm not 100% sure what the timeline is, but it is true that other Middle East countries have been dragged into this war already, either because Iran is attacking America's perceived allies, or because Israel is just fucking unloading the clip and being like, all right, the fucking bombs are flying. Let's fucking go crazy, man. It's happening. This is now. So yeah, I do believe that that is part of the front for Israel now is Lebanon. More specific than that, I don't have off the top of my head, unfortunately. Eowyn says, do you think it's possible us would do a draft? I think it's unlikely, but it's definitely possible that the Trump administration might do that. Dandy Dan says, if Dems win the House, will Johnson time quit immediately? I don't know what the timeline is, but yes, Johnson will no longer be the Speaker of the House if Democrats win the House in the midterms. He will finish up basically until all the new Democrats have been sworn in January, and then there'll be a vote for a new House Speaker, and then the Democratic Speaker will basically take over. Dr. Mantis Toboggan says, the Greater Israel Project is real. I don't know what that is. It sounds a little anti-Semitic coded. What's up, Flonk Sauce Dragon? Great to see you again. Divine says, what could replace democracy? I mean, I don't think anything should replace democracy. Full Metal Jacket says, don't you get sick of politics? I do. That's why I take the weekends off. Jalal says, how to get better at debate. Always lose my train of thought and just blank out. Jalal, don't do debates. Don't do them. They're stupid. Don't get into a political discussion with somebody who doesn't give a shit about the truth and just wants to win. That is, you just waste your time and drive yourself fucking crazy, and you perpetuate this us versus them narrative. The important thing is coming to an understanding with somebody. Don't try to win, try to convince. Alex Turner says, thoughts on non-monogamy? It's not for me, but maybe somebody else wants to do it. Seems fine with me. The Fixer Mike, great to see you again, says, Jared, are you mad at me? Or rolling on the floor laughing. Anywho's, thank you. I don't know what this is referring to, the Fixer Mike, but I love you. Ethereal Eternity says, what would you teach your kid about politics? That they have to be skeptical, to look at the net as opposed to looking at specific instances, that voting is one of the most important things that they can do, and if they wanted to run for office, then I would support them. Divine says, don't you think in this era democracy has failed? I do not think that democracy has failed. I think that people have failed. I think that the billionaire class has been very successful at attempting to dismantle democracy, but it is not democracy's fault that it was destroyed. It is the billionaires' fault that they were destroyed. Eliminate All Floyd says, hi man, good evening. Opinion on the war. I'm against it. Ethereal Eternity says, do you read the news daily? Which ones, if you do? I try to get a really varied media diet, so I focus on news aggregators like the Reddit news feed or Ground Truth. And then I also listen to a variety of more in-depth podcasts that are definitely more progressive and left-leaning as opposed to being centrist. But I feel like I'm allowed to do that because I make up for it by having a varied reading media diet. Says, why is it the billionaire's fault? Excellent question. And I know what that laughing face emoji means, but I'm going to answer your question anyways. Everything that is wrong with America right now, everything that is hurting you and the people that you care about, is because of billionaires. The reason why Republicans are currently in power and starting wars and stealing your money is because of billionaires. This is part of their plot. They want to get rid of the government because the government is what keeps them having to pay taxes and having to do safety regulations around all of their power plants and shit like that. The Koch brothers began this project of dismantling democracy because they used a pipe that was way too old and had a bunch of holes in it, and it accidentally blew up and killed a bunch of teenagers. And then they had to pay a bunch of money to the father of the teenager that they manslaughtered. And they were like, this would be a lot easier. It'd be a lot easier for us to accidentally kill teenagers and make a whole bunch of money if the government didn't exist. So they began this strategy, and it's been very, very effective. Dark says, wow, it's 2026 and Democrats have become conspiracy theorists. Not a conspiracy, Dark. Read the movie Dark Money by Jane Mayer. If you're doing the drinking game, now's the time that you drink. Low Dairy says, because of the billionaire, the world is suffering. That is 100% accurate. Uncle Hippie says, did billionaires start the Libertarian Party to undermine the government? Yes, they did, Uncle Hippie. Trump Bip says, why America war with Iran, sir? Because Trump's an idiot and he does stupid things. Dark says, if this is a comedic bit, it's hilarious. It's not, Dark. Alex Turner says, thoughts on ethnic nationalism for indigenous people. I worry about nationalism, especially ones that are built in ethnicity. S says, people hate the government and love taxation, but all their tax money goes to the government. That is inaccurate. Taxpayer dollars go to things like paved roads and the fire departments. All right, Billy Swamps III says, do you think they purposely made two different sides for diversity? No, that is not how the two-party system came about. Female Foxy says, do you think Trump will get removed? If not, why? If he doesn't get removed, it's because Republicans are in charge, and Republicans don't give a shit about Republican presidents breaking the law or doing wildly impeachable things. So long as they're a member of their party, they don't believe in consequences. Gojira says, we could have won Vietnam, but we pulled out too early. I don't agree with that at all. Low Dairy says, do you think the Gulf countries will trust us after this war? I believe that ship has sailed. Kex Lang says, if we aren't happy with our government, then why do we keep voting the same people into office? I don't know who we is, because that shit ain't me. I ain't fucking doing that shit. I am voting for better people than this, Kex Lang. So I vote for people who do things that I want to be done in government, and then they get into government, and then I vote for them some more. But then other people vote against them because, I don't know. Billionaire propaganda, probably. Brer Breck says, who is more evil, the government of the USA or the government of Iran? I'm going to go Iran, but right now it's a real close game, considering that, the Trump administration is sending masked federal agents to murder and detain and sexually assault American citizens. Akshay says, why does the president demonize others so much? That is a fascist playbook. You got to blame everybody's problems on a marginalized group that you can then round up and systematically oppress or murder. That's what they do. That's what happened in Germany in the 1930s and 40s. That's what Trump is trying to do now. Kieran says, what do you think about Welsh independence? If that's what people in Wales want, I say go for it. Max Schmidt says, why do you think Trump won the election considering he won the popular vote as well? That's a very big question, Max. I do have a very specific opinion about that. But here's the thing. Nobody knows for sure why Trump and Republicans did so well in 2024. Everybody only has their theories. I believe that my theory is correct, but I can't claim to have the smoking gun for why I'm right and everybody else is wrong. But here's why I think Trump and Republicans did so well during 2024. Number one, incumbency bias. People were mad at whoever was in charge, regardless if they were left, right, or center, regardless if they were in America or some other country. Every incumbent power suffered electoral losses in 2024. People were mad about inflation, even though it was caused by the Trump administration. They blamed Democrats, so they voted against Democrats. No, that's number one. Number two, and I think the bigger problem, is misinformation and propaganda. Most Americans get their news off of social media. Social media is owned and manipulated by the billionaire class in adversarial nations like Russia, China, and North Korea. And so they were incentivizing people to either vote for Republicans or not vote at all. And ergo, we are in the situation that we are in right now. Alrighty, Flonksauce says, who's worse, billionaires or evangelicals? I'll go billionaires because I think billionaires have more agency than evangelicals. John Abbott says, I think they will avoid a draft as long as they can because everyone in the White House understands that a draft is admitting that we are losing. From your lips to God's ears, John Abbott, I certainly hope that you are correct. All right, Daniel says, is Edward Bernstein your relative? No. Says, roads are built by local governments, though. Okay. But that's taxes. Like, you only hate federal taxes? Do you hate the military? Because that's how we pay for the military, is through federal taxes. Uh-oh, it looks like my gift window has crashed. That's upsetting. All right, well, I can't do any new gift goals, everybody. That's a bummer for me. Divine says, can you simplify a new world order? I don't know what that means. Triska says, local roads get money from the feds. I believe that was accurate, Triska. But, I did not want to say because I was not 100% sure. John Young says, what do you think about Jared Polis trying to undermine the Second Amendment? I don't know who Jared Polis is. Alrighty, scrolling down. John Young says he's trying to make it mandatory to take a 12-hour class to purchase a semi-automatic rifle. I mean, what would be wrong with taking a 12-hour class to purchase a semi-automatic weapon in Colorado, John Young? Is that too great of a price to pay for acquiring a semi-automatic weapon? I don't understand why taking a 12-hour class is such a big fucking deal, John Young. Low Dairy says, why we complain when it comes to student loan forgiveness, but not the war? I mean, I complain about both of those things. I complain that we should be, why aren't we forgiving more student loans, and why are we in a stupid fucking war? John Young says it's a violation of the Second Amendment. I mean, it's technically not, because in the Second Amendment it says well-regulated militia. So we get to regulate who can and cannot own a gun. It's in the Second Amendment. John Young. But it being in the Second Amendment, I don't find that to be a viable argument. The Constitution was designed to be changed and amended and fluid. There is no Constitution on this planet that should have existed for as long as our Constitution lives for. I want you to give me a substantive reason besides a bunch of dudes who couldn't even imagine what a semi-automatic rifle is, did not think ahead to mandating a 12-hour safety class for people that want to buy it. Shork says, doesn't that just make people more dangerous with weapons? What, Shork? You'll have to clarify that, please. Hawaii Sun says, does deporting our workforce seriously hurt Social Security long term? Yeah, it hurts everything, Hawaii, but it 100% hurts Social Security. Thomas says, dude, every president since Carter did a deal with Iran. Obama paid them. No, Obama did not pay them. Obama released money that was theirs because they agreed to stop seeking nuclear weapons. And that was a good thing, but then Trump threw that away, and now they are going for nuclear weapons again. Thomas says, did they what? Let me know. Hey, my gift button is back, I think. Let me see if I can make this work again. All right, Average Joe, great to see you again. Says, what's your favorite rock band? It's definitely not Tool. That's for darn sure. Akshay says, Save Act thoughts. It is a massive voter suppression bill. Nobody should vote for it. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Thomas says, stop with trying to build nukes. I mean, if anything is going to incentivize Iran to try to build nukes, it is what Trump is currently doing. So, bad arguments all around, All right, let's see here. Comments are kind of slowing down, everybody. It is 40 minutes in, and we are answering questions about politics. If you got any questions about politics, just throw them in the chat. Ethereal Eternity says, what do you think about the public school system? It needs to be better funded. Thomas says, LOL, you don't know what they believe. Sad day. That's not a question, Thomas. Ask a question or I'm going to boot you. Awesome Sauce says, what kind of classic literature do you think people will write about the present, a la Animal Farm? I mean, it's just, I honestly don't know, because it's the same shit. Like the same shit that made Orwell write Animal Farm in 1984 is what the Trump administration is currently doing, So it's just go read that thing instead, Uncle Hippie says, isn't attacking Iran the biggest incentive we could give Iran to develop nukes? 100%. IMPM says, what do you think about anarcho-privatism? I don't know what it is. I have not heard a single argument for anarchism of any variety that I have found to be substantive. Ray says, what is the difference between Republicans and Democrats in terms of goals? So there's a bunch of different ways to answer this question, Ray. I as a Democrat myself, I want to answer this question in a way that I know others would call biased. So I'll try my best to phrase this in a way that even Republicans can get behind. Republicans do not believe that there should be a government. They believe that the free market can handle everything. They believe that if we give more money to billionaires, that money will eventually trickle down to us, that we should not be regulating things like emissions or pollution, because the free market can just fix that as well. They look for free market solutions to everything. Everything to them is cutting taxes for billionaires will solve whatever problem that you have. Yeah, and their foreign policy is a lot more hawkish as we are currently seeing. They are, the Trump administration has bombed more nations than any other president in the 21st century. Democratic Party, by contrast, believes that the government can be a vehicle for good. They believe in taxing the billionaire class. They believe in supporting the unions and strengthening workers. They believe that if a corporation is going to make something, then they need to be responsible for the chemical runoff from making that thing, which means that they are not allowed to poison our air and our water and our food supply. Ooh, let's see here. Darn you to heck indeed, Average Joe. All right, Akshay says, is Trump trying to stay in office after his term? I generally believe that is the case. He needs to stay out of jail, so he is either going to try to die as president, or he is going to try to install somebody like one of his stupid fucking kids, so that he can get pardoned. Ethereal Eternity says, what do you think about people canceling their AI subscriptions like Claude? I mean, I don't think that anybody should be paying for AI. It is ruining everything. So yeah, anything that you can do to take power away from AI companies, I think you should. Fletch Lives Again says, ways to increase accountability of politicians. Some just lie to our faces on TV. Voting, primaries, town halls. Fletch Lives Again, go to their offices. Go to their offices. They work for us. So if they be lying to our fucking faces, go to their office and be like, we're fucking tired of this shit. And me and my buddies are going to primary this person unless this behavior changes going forward. All right, scrolling down the bottom, Amazing Bro says Trump needs to stop trying to make peace in the Middle East. It's not going to work. I don't think Trump really gives a shit about peace in the Middle East. I think he just wants somebody in charge of Iran that's going to do what he tells them to do. Okay, excellent question so far, everybody. Ray says, thanks for the answer, but how about conservatives and liberals? Same as Republicans and Democrats? Generally speaking, I mean, you could say that a conservative is somebody that believes in the slow march of progress, where a liberal is somebody who's a little bit more aggressive about change. But that doesn't really fall the same way as like Republicans versus Democrats. But a lot of people use those words synonymously. Like I'm a conservative, so I vote for Republicans, or I'm a liberal, so I vote for Democrats. There are also different schisms between like different kinds of Democrats. Like there are some people who believe there's a difference between liberals and leftists. So yeah, it really depends on what you mean. Where all of these terms are concerned, Ray, I think it's really important that we are specific, because you can get tricked into believing or voting a certain way just based on words that nobody agrees on what the definition is, says, why don't you like AI? It is a massive strain of resources. It is being developed irresponsibly. It is threatening the job market. It is causing mass layoffs. Yeah, we are currently in a global water emergency because of artificial intelligence. Akshay says, would you say MAGA misrepresents the Republican Party? I would say MAGA is the Republican Party at this point. I would love to see it. I would love to see the Republican Party going against MAGA, but, I haven't seen it so far. Says, it's not. That's not a question, You're in question jail. Ask a question or I'm going to boot you. Okay, let's see here. Nam Nguyen says, they are causing mess in Ukraine, which is annoying. I mean, the Russians are causing the mess. The Ukrainians are just trying to defend themselves. Excellent questions, everybody. Welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jared, and I answer all of your opinions I answer all your questions about politics. Says, I just stated my opinion, and laughing face emoji. That's not a question, that's your final warning. Questions only from you, or you're out of here. Shmoney says, what's your ethnicity? My dad's Jewish, my mom's Italian. Akshay says, probably won't see it this term with the Republican Party. That is accurate. Johnny Jewel says, is the divide too deep? No, the divide is not too deep. We can bridge the divide. We just have to do the work of bridging the divide. All right, excellent questions, everybody. My name is Jarrett. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, some in the middle, some on the outskirts. I do not discriminate or judge or harass or bully or debate. It is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. Somebody with a screen name Netanyahu says, hi. Just want to let you know, I don't truck with that screen name. Actually says, how to keep unity and peace, soft power, and diplomacy. to remove desperation, remove poverty, lift people up, give them the resources they need to live lives without struggle, and you will see unity and peace. Ray says, is Trump always that controversial, even though he was not a president? Keep seeing a lot of news. I mean, yeah, he's been controversial throughout his entire life, even when he wasn't in politics. But yeah, I'm not really sure what you're asking about specifically there, Ray. 1974 says, seriously, how do you stay so optimistic? Self-care, zooming in and zooming out is really important. I zoom out, I see all the problems in the world. I zoom in, I see my wife, I see her big old pregnant belly. I see my friends, I see my mom, I see my little sister. And then I remember what I do this for, and then I zoom back out and I see what's going on, and I do the live stream, and then I zoom back in. And I go to the OBGYN with my wife, and I go to the gym, and I do a little hot plunge, cold plunge, and I do a little gardening. Polka Dotted Pickle says, why can we have enough to start wars but not provide health care? Polka Dotted Pickles, it is because the Republican Party is currently in charge of the government. The Democratic Party has been moving away from this for a long time, but people have not been giving them consistent enough support for them actually to get this shit done. It'd be one thing if people voted for Democrats and then voted against warmongering centrist Democrats in the primary, but instead what's happening is people are voting for Democrats, not liking them, and then voting for Republicans who are doing the things that you didn't like about Democrats, but only way worse. That's not how things are going to get better. Until people keep on electing Republicans, until they stop getting electoral wins, until they start feeling the consequences of all of their fucking crimes against humanity in the electoral process, then this cycle is going to continue. But if you start voting for Democrats, if you start rewarding Democrats for doing things like investing in renewable energy and supporting unions and breaking up monopolies, then you will start to see the kind of consistent process. The Affordable Care Act made it so that people could not be denied health insurance because of pre-existing conditions. There are people alive today because of the Affordable Care Act. It was a step in the direction of universal health care. And how did the American people reward the Democratic Party for giving them that step in the right direction? They voted for Republicans en masse. So let's start thinking about incentive structures for our politicians, guys. Average Dose is, would you recommend people research the electricity and water rates that AI data centers are being charged compared to residential rates? I would recommend that, Average Joe. Ray says, didn't Trump say he promises that he will stop all wars? What happened to that promise? He was lying, Ray. He lies about everything. He is a big old liar. He lies about everything. He lies about the lies that he had just previously told. Shmoney says, thoughts on people starting wildfires in Argentina to buy land cheaper. I haven't heard anything about that, Shmoney. I don't agree that people should be doing that for a bunch of reasons. Dennis St. Vincent says, both Netanyahu and Trump failing statuses desperately need a war to hold on to power. There is definitely accuracy there. Scrolling down to the bottom, Akshay says, how come the president is able to manipulate a group of people? Because he has the support of the billionaire class, and the billionaire class owns all of the means of disseminating information. So they are able to get people to believe propaganda and misinformation because of that. Ray says, why is there Republican or Democrat only anyways? Why no other options? Wondering. So the reason why is because of our electoral systems make it very difficult for independent parties to make any kind of progress. Additionally, a lot of the independent parties that have been trying to get in, they're a little sus. Like, they haven't actually been trying to win on the state and local level. They just do these cash grab, ego-driven runs for president every 4 years, and that's not really a great way of going about it. The Green Party specifically, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that they are being owned and operated by the Russian government. So, there are changes that we could make to make it so that independent parties would have more of a chance. Getting rid of the Electoral College, for example, having ranked choice voting instead of winner-take-all kind of systems. But the Republican Party is never going to do those things, so we should vote for Democrats. Actually, what voting system would be best? I would go ranked choice voting. But there's, what do you call it? There's the devil's in the details, and more than that, I do not know. Brooklyn says, what are the 52% of white voters doing to convert the 48% white voters that still support Trump? I don't know what other people are doing in Brooklyn, but I do live streams 5 days a week trying to convince people to stop supporting Trump. I talk to people in real life. I work with organizations like Run for Something, Vote Save America, Indivisible, Swing Left. I knock on doors. That's what I'm doing, and maybe, hopefully, other white people are doing that as well. Alrighty, excellent question though, Brooklyn. Excellent questions, everybody. We got about 10 minutes left in the live stream, so get in your final questions here. Brooklyn says, so the 52 are talking to the same 52. That's not what I said, Brooklyn. And honestly, I find you a little sus. You know, your doomerism and your claim that I just gave you a fucking laundry list of all the activism that I'm doing. And then instead of saying, oh my God, that's so great, and I hope that other people do that also, you are just accusing me of talking to just people that agree with me. So I find that to be really sus, Brooklyn. Ray says, one last question before I sleep. Will the war in Iran affect America's reputation by a ton or not? It will reflect America's reputation by a ton. It is going to ruin our reputation for a long, long time. Akshay says, after everything is over, will people lie about ever voting for Trump? 100%. There's a book that I have not read yet called One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This. And yeah, it's all about that shit. 1974 says, every Republican I talk to in real life is just as bad as those on social media. I find that hard to believe. 1974. Hozu says, who assassinated Charlie Kirk? I don't know what the dude's name was who got arrested, but I do not believe that the trial is over, so we still have no idea. Pan says, what's your thought about veto power? Is it fair, authority, or otherwise? I really haven't seen an abuse of the veto power the way that I've seen an abuse of things like the pardon power. So I don't hate the veto power. Yeah, I'm open to an argument. Brooklyn says, no Kings rallies, 52 to the 52. Brooklyn, you are in question jail. You are only allowed to ask questions going forward because, again, that kind of doomerism, that kind of you're throwing shade at people who are doing the work, Brooklyn. Like, what is the matter with you, man? Do you want to talk to the people on their fucking couches? Do you want to actually go out and talk to Republican voters? Or would you just like to throw shade at other activists because they're not doing the magical thing that you think that they should be doing, Brooklyn? Honestly, man, I cannot wait for you to leave this live stream. F says, have you explored Marxism? I've read about it a little bit. Brooklyn says, they aren't doing the work because look at Texas. That's not a question, Brooklyn. Congratulations, you're out of here. See you later. Fucking sus as hell, man. I clocked you the second you joined my live stream yesterday. Jote 2025 says, no money for healthcare, social security, affordable new housing, tax breaks need to overthrow our government. Or we could just vote, Jote. Like, voting exists. That's the thing, you know? CS says, do you think the left eats its own too much? Yes, with an asterisk. I don't know how much of that is real and how much of it just exists on the internet, CS, because everybody that I know on the left doesn't do that. So I would just say to the same people that, you know, I tell, if you're seeing a right-wing person that you think is just trying to make you mad and you think is just trying to get you angry at every right-wing person, ignore that person. And if you see a left-wing person on the internet that it seems like they're just trying to make you mad at other left-wing people, ignore that person too. Ignore the purity test leftists. Ignore the debate bro calling you a cuck Republicans. Akshay says, will the Iran war affect our allies and will they stop being our allies with us? I don't know if they will stop entirely, but the relationship will change, I think, 100%. And it will affect our allies 100%. It already is affecting our allies. Iran is doing strikes against a bunch of our allies in the area. Voice of Reason says, just make sure you have legal status if you're going to vote this time. Only people that have legal status are allowed to vote. Voice of Reason, you're in question jail. Ask a question or I'm going to boot you. Boric Review says, how can we vote out the Zionists in our government when almost all of our politicians are owned? So not all of our politicians are owned. There are a record number of Democrats that are standing up to AIPAC and Netanyahu. So I'd say first thing that you can do is vote for Democrats over Republicans, because even if there is an AIPAC Democrat in the government, that is still helping the non-AIPAC Democrats that are in government as well to have a AIPAC Democrat there instead of an AIPAC Republican. That's number one. Number 2 is the primary. Vote out the Democrats in the primary that you do not like, and you will no longer have the Democrats that you do not like. But there's another thing to consider there, which is that maybe other people like that Democrat. You know, we live in a nation of 330 million people. Not everybody's going to agree with us. The whole fucking point of elections is everybody has a say, and then we do what the majority said to do. Akshay says, James Scalarico thoughts. I like him a lot. I think he's great. I think he's got a real chance at winning that Senate seat in Texas. Randy Mart says, relationship will be different until they want help again. I disagree with that, Randy Mart. BEQ says, bro, I'm left-handed but right-wing. Is it okay? I mean, I don't think anybody should be right-wing, but it's fine for you to be left-handed. Ra Wazanda says, okay, Israel first or America first? Neither. I am for the citizens of both of those countries. I am against the governments of both of those countries. CS says, do you think that Dems in red states should run as independents? Yeah, you know, if the hate for that D on the ballot is strong enough that people won't listen to you at all, then yeah, why the hell not? You know, if you want to run as a Democrat, run as a Democrat. If you want to run as an independent, fucking go for it, man. All right. Harris says, do you think affirmative action is good? I do. Quixote says, you are right-wing. What are you talking about? I am not right-wing, Quixote. I don't believe that anybody should be right-wing. I am not right-wing. Israel Franco says, how can we vote out Schumer if he is not in my district? Excellent question, Israel Franco. So we can do a couple of things. Number one, we can support a primary challenger against Schumer, you know, from any state or city in the country. You are allowed to do that. You can call your representative, your senators, and tell them that you want a different Senate leader for the Democrats. That is the way that we can make him not, you know, minority or majority leader of the Senate Democrats. Alrighty, Hippie Dan says, do you think that person should be booted for cruelty to Mia's LV Adventures? Yes, somebody was being mean to Mia? Then yeah, fucking fuck that dude. Straight to hell, my guy. You do not throw shade at Mia. Oh my goodness. Why don't you shut the fuck up? Oh man. I think Lauren is the one who booted that guy. Fucking excellent work. Okay, Quixote says, vote Democrat, but not right-wing, ? Private property, low taxes, open market, billions to Israel, true right-wing. I don't know what you're arguing, Quixote. But yeah, voting for Democrats is not right-wing. Private property, low taxes, open market, billions to Israel, true right-wing. That's not the Democrats' platform. You're awfully sus, Quixote. You're saying a lot of things that are inaccurate. Ray says, Kamala versus Trump election, was it as a popularity election? I think there's a lot of issues there. But generally speaking, I don't believe that it was an accurate temperature check of America. CS says, you can donate a phone bank for the candidate primarying the candidate you don't like. That is 100% accurate. Akshay says, what is the goal of the Iran war and the president's intention? I've got no fucking idea, Akshay. Depending on who you ask and what day you ask, you'll get a fucking different reason. As far as I can tell, the only reason why Trump got into this war is because Netanyahu and Lindsey Graham really wanted him to, and they tricked him into doing it. All right, Cam says, who's most likely going to be the next president just based off of majority public opinion? No human being knows that, Cam. I'm also trying to get everybody focused on the midterms in 2026. Let's not focus on 28. Let's focus on 26. We got midterm elections happening this year. We got primaries happening right now, guys. Fucking get out there and vote. Awesome Sauce says, Central Command just investigated the Iranian school strike is confirmed. U.S.'s fault, 100%. Trump's Republican Party administration murdered over 100 school children in Iran. Everybody should be really upset about that. That is invalidating, in my opinion. That invalidates the entire Republican Party. Every elected politician that is not demanding accountability for that, you're done, in my opinion. All right, Mia said, just saw on the news that the Pentagon blew $93 billion this month. That is 100% accurate. Iconic says, can you be anti-Trump but still a Republican? Sure. Quixote says, I guess you aren't right-wing compared to Republicans, but compared to the rest of the world, you are right-wing. Again, that is inaccurate. There are maybe people in the Democratic Party who fit that mold, but the Democratic Party is a big tent, and we've also got people like Bernie Sanders and AOC. And James Tallarico, 1974, says, do you think the midterms are going to be volatile? I do, but we can make them less volatile if we do the work now. Tay says, do you think you will finally get impeached? Only if Democrats win the midterms. That solar guy says, just saw a general from Iran say some crazy stuff on Al Jazeera. Fuck my life. I feel so sorry for them. Yeah, man, it's fucking disgusting what we have done to the people of Iran. I have no sympathy for the government of Iran, but for the citizens, goddamn, this is a nightmare what we are doing. CS says, Republicans don't care about school children here. What makes you think they care about Iranian ones? You know, that's one of a billion reasons, you know. Yeah, it should have been after fucking, what was that place in Connecticut? Like Newtown or something? I forget. Yeah, where all the kids got shot. Camcast says, what happens in the midterms? I don't get it. I'm a Brit, so it's kind of lost on me. In addition to president, we also have senators, which have a 6-year term, and House members, which have a 2-year term. So that means that every 2 years there is an election, and sometimes senators and president are also on that election. Right now we got midterms coming up, which means that there are some senators, and every House member is up for re-election. Dare O'Brien says, most of the world are traditionally conservative. I don't believe that is accurate. Akshay says, what will happen if the president gets kicked off of this position? I don't know, Akshay. You'll have to be more specific. Stephen Peterson says, do you think Trump even cares about the school? No, I do not. BitNevo says, have you heard about the Department of Peace? They hacked ICE and revealed all companies complying. I have not heard about that, BitNevo. But yeah, I heard there was some people were hacking ICE or something. I need to look more into that. Harish says, do you think federalism is good, or should the federal government intervention be increased? I think that it's a balancing act between state and federal power. I don't know where the line is to be drawn there, but I do think that there are some issues that work better as states' rights and some issues that work better as federal rights. For example, I think that abortion should be legal federally because leaving it up to the states has resulted in a bunch of women dying who were not trying to get an abortion. We're just trying to have a baby. Abortion bans do not decrease abortions or even stop them. They only make pregnancy more dangerous for women. So my live was just reported for misinformation, which again, there is none on my channel, which is weird that this happened. So what are you going to do? I don't know. I guess I'll just keep on answering questions. Alrighty. All right. Actually, yeah, we're at an hour, so I'll start wrapping things up. Get in your final questions, everybody. If you want to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to. I know that we're all struggling, but if you have the means and you have the desire, the mechanisms are there. You can join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. You can send gifts on TikTok. You can send emotes and bits on Twitch. You can be a super fan on TikTok. You can be a subscriber on Twitch. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to my Twitch for $0. Costs you nothing, helps me out a ton. If there are any questions that I was not able to get to on this live stream, you can hit me up. I do not care. Do not be shy. Send me an email or whatever. I want to be a resource for you guys. So however I can do that, I want to do that. DMs are open. You can email me through my website, or you can hit me up on my Discord channel. The Discord is great because there's also recommendations there for books and podcasts and civic actions that we can all take to try to make things better going forward. Thank you, Badger. Stephen Preston says, if Democrats win in the midterms and they impeach Trump again, will he actually be removed from office? So it is unlikely, Stephen, that Trump will get removed from office because in order to remove an impeached president from office, you need 67 votes in the Senate. If Democrats were to get all 67 seats, they would need to win every single Senate race that is up for election in 2026, which is possible, but unlikely. It's also possible that Democrats win 60 seats and they're able to convince 7 Republicans to join them in removing Trump from office. But they're not going to do that unless the Republican Party learns that supporting Donald Trump blindly is less politically beneficial than not supporting him blindly. So yeah, there's just work for us to do, my guy. Just always work for us to do. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Heather says, shouldn't a huge Democratic turnout scare Republicans? It hasn't in the past, Heather, because the real existential threat to the Republican Party is their funding, is the billionaire class. The billionaire class made a deal with the Republican Party a long time ago. They said, do whatever the fuck you want, give us our tax breaks and cut our regulations, and we will use all of our money to make sure that you never lose important elections. And they have been wildly successful in this project, even though we have had some electoral wins like in 2020 or 2008. The billionaire class just double down and refocus their efforts, and they get even further in their project next time. Where the billionaire class's agenda is concerned, every time Democrats win an election, it's one step back, but then every time Republicans come back, it's 2 steps forward again. Alrighty, let's see here. That solar guy says, where? Oh, yeah. Okay, guys, so in addition to being flagged for misinformation, which I don't do, so natch, let's see here. Are my buttons working again? My buttons are not working again. Yeah, I'm having some issues with my, what do you call it? With my TikTok deck right now. Hey, my thing's working again. How about that? But will my gift goal thing work again? That's the big question here. All right, CS says, did you see Marjorie Taylor Greene's district went to a runoff? I did, and I have high hopes for the Democrats in that race. Stephen Peterson says, why even bother impeaching Trump if there isn't a removal from office? Seems pointless, in my opinion. I disagree, Stephen Peterson, that it is pointless. There's a couple of advantages to impeaching Donald Trump again. Number one, he's the only president to be impeached 2 times, and we should 100% add to that number because it really pisses him off. Number two, we are able to show the American citizens exactly who is keeping accountability from happening. When we all voted to impeach Trump after January 6th, everybody in America got to see exactly which House members and which Senate members voted to keep him, to not remove him from office, to not find him guilty in the Senate. And I think more people should care about that shit. Clearly not enough people did, but that information is at least out there. When we stop ourselves from doing things because we don't think it's going to get, to the very top, not only are we not allowing for those weird, crazy things that could possibly happen, we could potentially convince some Republican senators to join us in the good fight, but also you are not forcing them, the ones that aren't going to go along with it, to put their name and face out there. All of these Republican senators who this might have been politically damaging for could then go back to their constituents and say, I would have voted for impeachment, but this House never sent us an impeachment. Alrighty, Akshay says, is it possible for there to be more than one runoff? In which election, actually? I'm not sure what you were referring to. That solar guy says, I'm not sure I like Trump. Some of the stuff he says makes sense, but some of it is like, whoa, what? I mean, I find it strange that you feel even that tepid about Trump, that solar guy. Like, it's so clear to me that he's a piece of shit. I find it so strange that other people, that people say like things like what you just said, for example. No Tino Shea, that solar guy. Really happy that you're here. Skip This says, FBI is warning California police departments that there might be a military strike on California. I also saw that reporting, Skip This, and that is obviously something that we should all be really worried about and keep our head on a swivel for. Average Joe says, apologize if I've asked this before, but I don't remember, since it's common for voters to tie their personal values to their political ideology, and the Republican Party has been more successful in doing so. Would you agree that it's more financially efficient for campaigns to focus on appealing to non-voters whose values align with the Democratic Party instead of trying to appeal to right-leaning centrists? I don't know. I think it might be easier to convince an independent person who's a regular voter to vote for you than to convince a non-voter to vote and then also vote for you. So I'm not 100% sure on that, Average Joe. My gut is telling me just do both. Just do both. Appeal to everybody. So long as you're consistent in your values, you can run everywhere. It's just the people that need to tailor their message to whoever they're talking to that are going to be in trouble. All right, everybody. I'm going to get out of here. I will see you guys tomorrow. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. Do the work. And have an excellent Wednesday. See you tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye.